So I was just watching this thing where these people were talking about there's no capitalism in this country. Now, capitalism is when private businesses and business owners own the assets to make the good. So basically, think of like a factory that is owned by just just one person. Not by somebody in another state that's a CEO of such and such company. No, this would be like, your grocery store in the middle of nowhere that is not a chain store. It's owned by the people. And that's what capitalism is supposed to be. But that was only the doorway for what we're going through now, which corporations have been around for hundreds of years. And it's an extremely good idea. The problem is it throws a lot of things out of whack with stuff on paper, such as different stores increasing their prices. And, they're saying it's because of all these things going on around the world. And it's like, I also know that there's a lot of stocks in AI, so I can understand that a lot of people are leaning on these investors, and if you don't appease your investors, well, you're not going to have any investors. And if you don't have any investors, well, your seat is being taken up when it should be given to somebody else, right? And that's the way we see it. And so when these companies are buying these private businesses, and let's say these private businesses, they have some sort of copyright, or what's those things, as patent. They have patents, and it's like this corporation buys up this patent, and they're buying up all these different patents. And look at movie rights. Oh man, it's like anybody wants to make a movie, you have to go through all these legal loopholes of getting the rights and blah blah blah, and it's meant to be confusing. So when we feel special that we made something, and then it's bought up by these corporations, it's basically like a mini monopoly. They're buying up everything that we could possibly do ourselves. And you do anything similar, and you get in trouble for copyright. And so capitalism is actually getting harder and harder. And the reason I have a thing against capitalism is mainly for this reason. It's the fact that people are overcharging, and all these franchises. It's like if one region has this franchise store that doesn't do as well, well, then all the other stores got to make up for it, right? And now, how many people are just gonna say, "Well, I give up," rather than, "Well, let's find a way to make the consumer, take the extra." I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it? So it's like, it pissed me off. I was working at this pellet shop, and I was getting paid every week. And all of a sudden, they're like, "Well, we just got bought out by this mother company, blah blah blah." Oh, we're still the company, but now we're bought out by a mother company. I'm like, is this like Independence Day? Like the alien ships coming out of the mothership? Like, I can see businessmen, flocking, and it's like, makes me think of those Independence Day ships, and coming in swarms. So, and it's like, talking about those flock cameras. There's two ways to see that. One is that we'll be more conformed under complete surveillance, and that's psychological. And you're going to have all these people that have problems with it. Well, people have problems with computers. People have problems with cell phones. People have problems with a lot of things. And guess what? as time went on, people got more used to it and, eventually went to it. And that's the same thing that's going to end up happening with the flock cameras if it actually does go full blown. Is that eventually people are, you're going to have the side that continues to talk about how bad it is. And then you're going to have the billboard people, on national TV talking about how their life was changed because of block cameras. They're going to talk about how their life would have been so much different, would have been so much worse if it wasn't for block cameras catching what they did. I mean, what have we done? Like, people with cell phones are basically flock cameras. So, this is the doorway effect. It's like once you open the door, it's like we talk about marijuana being the gateway drug. Yeah, for somebody that's young, inexperienced, naive, peer pressured easily, all those things kind of factor into a person not wanting to do any sort of drugs in the beginning, but then they end up getting sucked into it anyway, right? And there's a lot of people that they'll be doing the best in their family, the best in their class, and this and that, and they're expected to hold that position, so they basically stay away from everything that they hear brought everybody else down. But yet the fact is, all those people below never knew what it was like to hold that position above. So you have two completely different realities here, just like the private businessman and the corporate businessman. The corporate businessman is going to be a lot more connected to a lot more people, and less to people, consumers, and more with people of their mindset. So basically, you get these people together and they're passing around tips and how to do this and how to do that, and keep your people just enough burn out that they don't ask questions, and you know uh, they have statistics for what seasons to lay off how many people and what the reactions they'll get, and but you're always going to have that the one Lego that doesn't fit, the one that was burnt to the point that it just won't fit. It's warped, and it's not warped in the way that it's not less beautiful. I wouldn't say that, but what I would say is that the perfection that we try to paint over everything, when that wears off, is when the Lego gets warped. And so basically what I'm saying is that no matter how sturdy you make a wall, the environments are gonna eventually bring it down, right? So really, I know I'm just using a lot of freaking ton of analogies here, but I just want to make sure I get my point across to make sure there's no misinterpretations, because this is an important part of who we are. When we try to paint over everything, a knife scrape alone can show what's underneath. You know, uh, any sort of degradation from environmental um, weather and stuff like that, it kind of wears the painting out over time. And the thing about inflation is it peels the paint a whole lot faster.